All right, today we're diving into a really powerful tale from Hindu mythology. It's got everything: a young hero, a poisoned river, and a massive, hundred-headed serpent king. It's this incredible story about courage, divinity, and even, believe it or not, restoring the environment. So let's get right into it.
So, the whole story really boils down to this one central question. How on earth did this one young boy, Krishna, manage to face down what was basically an unstoppable force of nature and bring his home back to life? The answer is pretty amazing, and it tells us a lot about power, mercy, and what it means to tame our own ego.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Our story kicks off with a paradise that has been well and truly lost. We're talking about the sacred Yamuna River, which was the lifeblood for the entire village of Vrindavan, and it's now in some serious trouble. Just imagine this for a second. The Yamuna River, it was once this pure, vibrant source of life for absolutely everyone. But now, it's a complete toxic wasteland. Seriously, the fumes coming off the water are so poisonous that birds flying overhead just drop dead out of the sky. And the reason for all this devastation? A monstrous serpent king named Kaliya, who decided to make the river his own personal toxic lair. So, how does it all come to a head? Well, it happens during a totally normal game among friends. Krishna's ball accidentally falls into the poisoned water. As you can imagine, his friends are just terrified. They're begging him, just leave it, don't go near the water. They know that even touching it means certain death. But Krishna, he's calm. He just climbs a tree overlooking the river, and you realize he's not just going in for a ball. Oh no. He's going in to confront the source of the poison itself.
So Krishna dives in, but the moment he hits the water, it's not the Serpent King he meets first. Instead, he runs into Kaliya's guardians.
It's Kaliya's wives, the Negranis, and they rush over to him. They just see this young, innocent-looking kid, and they're trying to save his life. They're warning him, pleading with him to get out before their terrifyingly powerful husband wakes up.
And this right here, this is our first big clue about who Krishna really is. He completely flips their plea on its head. He says, "Don't ask for mercy for me. You should be asking for mercy for your husband." He basically declares that he's here to free the Yamuna, and that Kaliya is the one who's in real trouble. Those are not the words of a child. That's the voice of divine authority.
Well, all the commotion finally wakes up the Serpent King. Kaliya rises from the depths, and he is furious that someone has dared to invade his space. He just sees this little boy, and, he can't even comprehend the nerve. The final showdown is about to begin.
Krishna's response at this moment just changes the entire game. He doesn't just say his name. He reveals his cosmic identity. He says, "I am Krishna, who is the death of death itself." Wow. With that one line, this is no longer a boy versus a monster. This is now a battle between divine order and total chaos.
Now, Kaliya, just blinded by his own pride, he completely misses the warning. He attacks, and that leads us to one of the most iconic scenes in all of Hindu mythology.
So the battle plays out in these four amazing stages. First, you've got Kaliya's attack. He coils his massive body around Krishna, trying to crush him. But then, stage 2, the counter. Krishna, being divine, just effortlessly expands his body until the serpent has to let go. And then comes the third part, the divine dance, the Tandava. Krishna leaps onto Kaliya's hundreds of hoods and just starts to dance. And with every single step, his weight becomes heavier and heavier, literally crushing the serpent's pride and his power. Finally, battered, exhausted, completely defeated, Kaliya surrenders. His venom, his fury, it's all gone.
So the fight is over. Krishna won. But this story isn't just about destruction. What happens next? Well, that's where we get the deeper message about compassion and real justice.
As Kaliya lies there, totally beaten, his wives come back. But this time, they're not trying to shoo Krishna away. They're begging for their husband's life. They finally see who's standing on their husband's head. They recognize his divinity, and they appeal to his compassion, praying for mercy.
You have to understand, Kaliya was really and truly trapped. He was stuck between a rock and a hard place. If he stays in the Yamuna, Krishna's going to finish him off. But if he leaves, he has to face his arch nemesis, the divine eagle Garuda. See, the Yamuna was his only safe haven, because a sage had cursed Garuda so he couldn't enter that specific part of the river. The Serpent King had nowhere to go.
And here is the absolute masterstroke of divine mercy. Krishna doesn't just spare Kaliya's life, he solves his original problem. By dancing on his hoods, Krishna left his divine footprints. He tells Kaliya that Garuda, who is a huge devotee, will see those sacred marks, and he won't attack. In fact, he'll honor him, because he's been touched by the divine. So Krishna banishes Kaliya to a far-off island, but he also gives him a divine protection plan.
So as the Yamuna's waters magically clear up and life starts coming back, the story leaves us with some really deep takeaways. This is so much more than just a myth about a boy fighting a snake.
So what can we learn from all this? Well, there are a few huge lessons here. First, it's a pretty clear example of good, or dharma, winning out over evil. It also shows us that true power, real divine power, isn't about punishment, it's about compassion. Krishna chose to reform Kaliya, not just destroy him. The whole story is also a great metaphor for taming our own ego. Kaliya's poison is like the pride inside us that needs to be subdued. And finally, there's this timeless environmental message, that it's our duty to protect the world around us from the poisons of pollution and neglect.
And that really leaves us with a final thought to chew on. We can look at Kaliya as just a literal monster in an ancient story. Or we can see him as a symbol. Maybe he represents the toxic ego we all struggle with, or the pollution we see in our own world. So the real question is, how do we face the Serpent Kings in our own lives? Not with just brute force, but with that same mix of courage, wisdom, and ultimately compassion.